Hello, everyone. Welcome to I have to check the date. It's Tuesday, September 21st, bi-weekly SIG Release meeting. My name is Jeremy, and I will be the host today. I'm going to drop the agenda into the chat. If you could go ahead and add yourself to the attendees for today, that would be awesome. If you have any topics you'd like to add to the agenda, feel free to add them as well. We have a few things that we'll go through. But we normally like to kick these meetings off first by reminding everyone that this is a Kubernetes SIG meeting, and therefore we are covered by the Kubernetes Code of Conduct, which can essentially be boiled down to please be excellent to one another. And I'm gonna make sure that I have given Ray co-host just in case we need a backup. And with that, we'll go ahead and first open it up to anybody to introduce themselves. If you're new to SIG Release, if you haven't attended any meetings, or if you have and you haven't introduced yourself in the past, now's a great time. Just say hello, say where you're coming from, what you're interested in, and we'll welcome you.
Hey, hi, I'm Bhargav Krishna from India. I'm new to this community, I'm exploring all things, joining meetings. I started yesterday.
Awesome. Welcome.
It's nice to meet you.
I can introduce myself. My name's Chun. Hi, everyone. I work at Apple. I applied to be a shadow release lead in August, but unfortunately I wasn't selected. But based on an email that I got from Jeremy, recommendations to participate more often in SIG meetings. So here I am. I'm going to try to contribute as much as I can and learning lots about Kubernetes.
Awesome. Welcome. Glad to have you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I'll go next. Hi, my name is Maciej. I'm a SIG Apps and SIG CLI lead. I think I wasn't joining SIG Release before, but I'm not sure. Maybe I have in the past. Either way, I work at Red Hat. And like I mentioned, I work in the area of CLI and controllers.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us today. I see you added an agenda topic.
Yeah, actually, Eddie tricked me because I see he's out. And he asked me whether I'll be able to join. I was like, yeah, I'll try to squeeze that in between meetings. And I'm like joining in parallel another meeting. So if I don't respond, that's probably because my brain is halfway through the other one.
Oh, no worries. We can always bump that to the next meeting as well if you'd like.
Now we can kick it off this time.
Okay. Anyone else that would like to introduce themselves?
Hi, I can go next.
Sure.
So my name is Pravel and I work at IBM India. And recently I've started making very small contributions to Kubernetes, mainly in SIG scheduling and descheduler code. Yeah, it's great to be here. Yeah, this is the first time I'm joining SIG Release. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. It's great to see so many new folks joining us today. All right, looking through the list, I'm pretty sure everybody else has been here before, but we'll pause for 1 second just in case. And if not, we will move on to sub-project updates. And I don't see Adolfo on the line, but I do see our brand new release manager. Congratulations, Veronica. Do you think you could give us an update on the release engineering sub-project?
Hi, no, sorry, not really.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think I know the same things that everybody else right now.
Okay.
So sorry about that. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries. We will do asynchronous updates there if there's anything that needs to be covered, and we'll drop them in SIG Release so everybody can be informed. Next up, Ray, do you want to take the release team update? And I can take notes while you're talking.
Yeah, we're currently in week 5 of the release cycle. We're kind of in the quiet period because we have KubeCon coming around the corner as well. So we have a total of 57 enhancements tracked, and that's including 2 exceptions for a few CSI in tree. They're going out of tree, and those exceptions were approved. So the total is 57 enhancements tracked. Just started to do a call for feature bugs as well. That went out last Friday, and also the state of the release was also sent out to the community last Friday as well. So next milestones, we actually don't have any milestones for the rest of September and October. Because we do have KubeCon. So, but that also puts us in a place where we have many milestones around many holidays. And so we're just trying to get a leg up on that work. So like the docs team started to ping enhancement owners to start their doc placeholder PRs early, even though that deadline isn't until November 18th, but we just want to get that word out early. So from now until for the month of October, around KubeCon, we're just trying to make sure we have enhancement owners aware of the deadlines they're approaching around the holidays, so they could start work early, like feature bugs, like docs, etc.
All right, thank you for the update. Any questions for Ray for the release team? All right, thanks for that update, and thanks for all of the great work so far on the release. It's been great to see things going pretty smoothly so far. Okay, that will take us to our first agenda item. I'll just delete this one because it's a placeholder. And that would be releasing and versioning kubectl independently. And I think that's Eddie and Mashe, if you...
Yeah, so the short idea is we've had staging for so long, and kubectl is one of the projects, top projects of the entire Kube ecosystem that is interested in actually doing the one step further, and we want to be part of a separate repo. We're already syncing the code and everything else. The last bit that is still left is figuring out how we can release kubectl outside of Kube repo.
Okay.
For starters, I would probably go, because the end goal is we would like to be able to release kubectl faster than Kube. I don't know, the cadence is something to figure out in the long term. But I would probably start with, let's align them together, and only afterwards we can figure out how to change or shorten that time. But for starters, to make it simpler, the question is how hard it is to release kubectl from a separate repo, not from the main Kubernetes repo, because you would basically have to release all the artifacts, but under a different repo. I'm not sure if the release team has been doing something like that in the past. If you have, that's cool. If not, I guess that's why I'm here, to figure it out, the initial steps required to do this.
I don't think that we have been doing anything outside of KK in terms of the core artifacts. Taylor and Veronica can maybe correct me if they're aware of any efforts we've done there so far, but I don't think we have. So this is probably an area that we need to collaborate on with you to make that a reality.
I mean, there are several options, because currently we are releasing all the artifacts with all the tags in the release page under KK. So I'm guessing for some period of time, we would be releasing both of them in both repos, but we would still link the kubectl artifacts into the main KK repo, just for the sake of everyone else looking for those artifacts. And then eventually we could cut backward and have them separate. and then even go all the way further to release on a entirely different cadence. But that's I guess it's a very forward thinking. I would start simple by just having the separate repo. So just thinking high level, would this process start out as a KEP to like an alpha to give a warning to the community that like the kubectl will be released outside of KK? And I'm not sure what the proper process of this, because I've seen this in some in-tree, out-of-tree deprecations, but that's my train of thought, is like moving kubectl in tree and going into its own repo. So having one way is to have a KEP so that it's communicated to the community. Alpha stage would be just that warning that kubectl will be released outside of KK, and then beta will be the actual release, and maybe stable will be removing the artifacts of kubectl from the KK. I don't know if you want to do that or not, but if that sounds like that might be something down the road. Right, so we already have a KEP from the past where we covered, not sure how far the process, but it definitely covered the part of moving all the code kubectl related to staging. I can probably look it up in a bit. And I'm positive that it did mention the fact that we will be moving this over to a separate repo, but it didn't go too much into details. So probably a worthy point would be to just update this or create a follow-up KEP to describe the process, describe the steps when we are targeting this for, and then slowly move with this forward. I'm curious from just the technical side of things, does releasing this in a separate repo is that much of a problem, or the current scripts are easily modifiable to go through a separate repo as well? Checking to see if Adolfo is back.
I don't think he is. I just pinged him directly on Slack. This is probably one that we'll need to follow up offline and get back to you, if that works. Do you want to start a, do you have an open GitHub issue that we could use to kind of swarm around and discuss this, or should we open one?
Probably we'll have to open one. This is the one that we used in the past for the process. Since the link doesn't work to the KEP, I'm just digging up the current state of the KEP versus the link to the KEP that we previously created. Yeah, it mostly covers the move to staging from what I'm quickly glancing over. There's no mention of the separate repo. So I guess we would just create a follow-up.
Okay, we'll start a discussion thread in the SIG Release Slack channel and see if we can handle some things there, or from the mailing list. Either way, I think we can handle it that way. And just kick off the discussion to figure out what the next steps would be and identify the pieces of the current process that will be inflexible and might require the most.
Okay, I'll sync with Eddie about creating the enhancement issue and start sketching the KEP for this one as well.
Okay.
In parallel, and you can figure out the details from the technical side of things, and we will deal with the paperwork in parallel. Cool. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions around this topic that anyone else has? All right, we will follow up offline and see what the next steps for this are and make them available for everyone. Thanks. Okay, next up, James had put a topic on here around release team selection improvements for future releases. James, do you want to start us off there?
Sure. So what I'm looking to do here is really start a conversation ahead of the next release, so 124 in January. I don't suspect that anyone's going to make any decisions now, but this is something I wanted to start. So one thing that I and others I've spoken to have noticed over the past few releases is I feel we're somewhat outgrowing the existing mentoring, shadowing selection process. And I think it's very much a victim of its own success. If you look at its last release in 123, Jeremy, you'll know this, I think it's like 185 applicants for shadow positions. And we have like 25, 30, I think, possible spots for shadows, which is, hugely oversubscribed. And I think that given that this is a situation we are in, we could handle this process better, both from the perspective of the release team itself and picking better, not necessarily better candidates. That's not really what I mean. What I mean is providing more consistency in terms of allowing people to come back more easily, and also make it possibly easier for people to apply and understand how that process works. I had a couple of ideas. I think others I've spoken to have as well. Max, I think it was you who wrote a diagram of one of them. There's kind of a few floating around. So I suppose what I really wanted to do is kick off a discussion here. And we'll get other people's thoughts, whether there's a problem that needs solving at all.
Yeah, I think it's worth revisiting this and determining what improvements we can make. It definitely was challenging, I think, for all of the leads this time to pick shadows because there were so many options. And then it's difficult for folks that apply maybe multiple times and just don't get through because just of the sheer volume of folks that are applying. I think we also discussed this. We didn't come up with a solution, but we discussed it in one of the release retro parts, part 2 or part 3. And I think the idea was that maybe it would be good to do a GitHub discussion, but I didn't open that yet because I wanted to wait until we started this. I think that would be the first thing that we should start with. And we can use that, so we can create a GitHub discussion item in the SIG Release repo and start kind of iterating there and collecting some of these, like the diagram Max made, and collect thoughts from previous release leads, previous folks that have applied to Shadow and maybe haven't been selected. And we can start from there, kind of get all of the known state and just work in the open. I don't have any really good suggestions on what it should look like at this point. I think it is going to continue to grow, I think, unless we tell people not to apply. It'll continue to just be a very high volume of applicants for a very low number of positions. I think that one concern I have just as a lead is that we don't necessarily get the long-term succession planning out of it that we might have in the past. And I think that there's a lot of reasons for that, probably COVID and people being burned out and just the world. But if we looked at like the 123 release team, we definitely did have some challenges getting to a point where all of the roles were staffed. And I think that kind of points to some things that could be done better, or maybe just a better way of backfilling, like you said, going back to folks in the past. We got Karen Chu to come back and do comms this time, who was a previous lead, but I think that it wasn't clear like what the order was, what way we should have gone about finding folks. And I think maybe as part of this, we should identify better reach back policies, or just a way to make it easier for folks that maybe don't have the network. So that, Nabroon as the enhancement, or the EA next time, or Ray as the EA for 125 or something. Figuring out like which people I should talk to from releases of 2 years ago or 1 year ago, whatever that might be.
We're going to need some Kubernetes history books here after a while to know who we need to reach out to. I agree. I think that there's definitely some merit in with some of the, they are rejection letters, but they give opportunities for people to jump off into different projects or within different capacities as well. And whenever we've sent those out, I think I've seen an overwhelming response where they're like, oh my gosh, I know this is a rejection letter, but this is the best one I've ever gotten, because it gives them a jumping off point for other things they could potentially do within the project. So we might be able to reach out to some other SIG leads or sub projects and say, hey, are you looking for someone? And then kind of give people those options too if they don't get accepted to the release team. I know that some people just want to help and they don't know the best place to start, and that's just the most visible one is the release team. So definitely agree with you, and definitely want to get there before we hit 5,000 applicants, maybe next release cycle.
I mean, it's a good problem that we had this cycle, and it's been growing with the amount of applicants. But we also, I mean, if there's some aspirational goals aside from this, we do see some problems, and maybe SIG contribX can play a part in this, because we had to put the call out for SIG docs. Like the bench got really thin to where then all of a sudden everything was falling on Jim Angel. I've seen other groups start to kind of fold, some of the more smaller SIGs. So is there a way that we can channel some of this energy that's coming directly into the release team into some of these areas? Like, I know, Taylor, you're right. Like the letter we have is good, it gives direction, but some people like myself, where I think it's we sometimes even need more than breadcrumbs, and we need help to kind of be shepherded into a program. Like, how do we, could we shepherd them into all these other areas if they can't fit into the team, so that we just, instead of just casting off 100 and something, we actually find a way to be like, okay, you didn't make it, but here's directly where you could go. Like, we could definitely use help here. I don't know if that's an easy, but I think if there's a goal, we should definitely be looking at backfilling. And then, I don't know if there's any metrics that have been collected previously about, retention and how things are going, but, I'm always think it's good when we can kind of capture some of this, but it definitely feels like we get a lot in on this release team, but then it just doesn't really extend into the broader ecosystem. And as this project matures, we know how the life cycle of these projects kind of go, so I think it's important that we find a way to groom these individuals into and find ways to just direct them long-term.
Absolutely agree. I think that there is that issue with people kind of onboarding, and as well as the project goes on, things come up, like was kind of spoken about, whether it be burnout or just something personal that happens or anything like that. To have seen people on different releases have to bow out, typically within the shadow capacity, or just a misunderstanding of the time commitment that took, making kind of promotion with regards to the next lead for the next release being difficult, and sometimes we have had to fall back to, let's take a look at people who have served in this capacity before and tried to source that. So I agree with you. I think the problem is twofold too, and ways that we can kind of help with this circulation, for lack of a better word, within the community would be fantastic. Definitely like to help on that front.
Yeah, one of the other kind
always, of... Oh, sorry.
No, sorry, please go on.
As always, I think that one of the reasons why Taylor's situation happens is the lack of processes, or the lack of robust documentation. Like, I can totally see new people coming in, and aside from the time commitments and all those things that were already mentioned, it's hard to just start working in an, I don't know, I'm trying to be empathetic to someone new just coming into this massive amounts of information and systems. And I know that in all areas of SIG Release, we could do docs a little bit better. I think we have been doing a great job recently, But in the past, I have seen that people from the shadow program struggle unless someone really tells them explicitly what to do. Because there are no, well, there are some, but there aren't enough manuals or processes documented, etc. So I don't know, probably one of the things that we could talk about later is to sort of do an iterative process of like the same people who come as newcomers or in the shadow program could leave a little bit of documentation in a better state for the people in the future, you know, like document their own process on how they learn things and how to look for things, etc. To stop relying necessarily on someone that probably has like 100 other responsibilities and who everyone has good intentions, but everyone is so busy as well. But yeah, so that's my 2 cents.
Absolutely agree. We had some feedback on that front too from a couple of shadows where they said, you know, that they kind of got the, oh, thank goodness you're here experience, and kind of the documentation linked and shown to them, but they said it was kind of hard to ingest. And so maybe even different formats, you know, instead of Markdown, making it just to look like Google Slides or something like that, a little bit more easy for them to kind of ingest or to understand or have visibility on. But definitely agree with you there. It's difficult to see that. And we may even well have the documentation for what we do a lot of the time, finding that or just kind of making sense of that is something that's difficult.
Okay, I do like the idea that Taylor brought up, having the documentation easy to ingest format. Going through all the role handbooks, I know some handbooks are better than others, so they're not on the same level. And the ones that are better than others, it might be too detailed for folks who are new to the project to actually to comprehend and digest. So like like that idea. I might start on that since there's a little bit of quiet time for me. So
yeah.
So it sounds like there's a couple of parallel issues. One is just the selection process and what that looks like. One is the onboarding experience slash just I guess the overall experience, the level of documentation that's available, the training that's available. And we could probably work on those things in parallel. I think that it would be worth starting a GitHub discussion issue so we can start hashing this out a little bit more and then make some concrete action items to take away. James, do you want to start one for the onboarding process, or not the selection process, and just the structure maybe? And then
I'll take an action for that.
Okay, cool. And then for the second one, really the documentation slash training slash other stuff, I can take that and work with Ray, and we'll start a discussion, and Veronica, and we can just start a discussion there. Does that sound good?
On that second point, is it worth reaching out to contributor experience and seeing if they have any thoughts around this?
Yeah, I think that it's worth having these things as just using GitHub as the place to store all of the info, so that we can make sure that it added a suggested action item. And is that your James McCoy? It's funny, I know a person named James McCoy. I think it's probably picking someone from sorry, total tangent. Super distracting. Okay, so those two things we'll start with and try to pull some concrete issues that we can add to the board, and maybe open some of this up to work for shadows later on. Any other comments or questions about that? All right. The last one on the agenda, and probably the last thing we'll get to go through because we're almost out of time, we got like 14 minutes left, is Taylor. Do you want to talk us through the Zoom Splane YouTube integration?
Yes, so I got the very fun task of solving a mystery. Now, it wasn't like Clue, there weren't any murder weapons or rooms that these things were solved in. Well, not technically meeting rooms, maybe. We had an issue where we would record these cloud meetings and they weren't getting uploaded to YouTube. Sounds pretty straightforward, right? Well, it wasn't. What was happening was we have a plugin that pushes these videos to YouTube, and that integration is called Splain. splain.io is the website if you want to check it out. Not too much to read there. What was happening was we had our integration set up just fine. All our IDs and linkages were okay. What had changed was when we did the shift over to the G Suite list of products and changed our email address. That's what broke things on the Splain side. Worked a lot with Splain support to try to figure this out. It looks fine, looks fine, looks fine. Then we found that out. It was really just basically removing the integration and bringing it back in. Now we can verify that everything works. So I believe this might be one of the first meetings where we have it pushed to YouTube. The only caveat that exists is that just so that we have the time to go through things, if say something were to get Zoom bombed or, just the recording needs to be edited in any way, this does push it up to YouTube. It leaves us private and it doesn't associate it with a playlist. So I can help out with that because I've got access to Zoom and to YouTube. If I don't respond or if I'm on vacation at YouTube admins or at Zoom admins would be able to help out with this, but I can go and set those after our meetings to public and then put that on the right playlist so that people can reference it after those calls complete on YouTube. But yeah, that was it. It was a fun mystery. Glad we got it solved and everything is working out.
So to add things to the playlist, is that something anybody can do, or no, because they're marked as private, so we won't have the links to them?
I think there is the ability to, I think YouTube added the ability to delegate. So if anyone does want that ability to do that, I think we can share out a link for people to go ahead and add those things in. But I think it is a one-off type of permission currently. Otherwise, it used to just be admins, and then they have like a shareable link that you can use to kind of administrate that. So happy to help out on that front any way possible.
Okay, that sounds good. Thank you for fixing that. I was trying to do these manually, and it was such a pain to do that.
It's we do have a huge backlog too. I'm working through that right now and getting those uploaded, but just working with the YouTube API and Zoom, just basically download, upload, so it's not manual because, like you said, it can be a bear.
Yeah. Okay. Do you know how deep the backlog is?
I think it's somewhere. I know we have just the user for SIG Release has 387 videos. I don't believe all those are ones that need to be uploaded. I think it's more around, I think it might be around like 100, 120 that are outstanding. So definitely a lot to process there.
Yeah. Thank you for working through this. It'll be much nicer to have this going.
Yeah, we're not quite Bitcoin. We don't have that amount of ledger and history, but we'll get there.
Awesome. Any questions for Taylor around Splain or Zoom? Is this a problem for like multiple SIGs, or was this just us?
Multiple SIGs did see this. We'll get there are even some times where you can have it set up just fine, and the webhook integration with Splain will fail. They do have some scale and load issues over at Splain. So I think at some point in time it'd benefit us just writing our own tool for the community. But yeah, it's just a matter of time, I think, and people's ability to help it on that front.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Next up, we'll spend just a few minutes kind of walking through the board and see if there's anything that needs to be triaged immediately. So let me share my screen. I'll bring this project board up. I have to close some other windows real quick though, hold on. Okay. All right, so let's look at the in review and in progress columns. So we have this one from Max. I think just needs an LGTM. I think he addressed all of the issues. So let's take a look at that real quick. Carlos was going to take a final look, but hasn't. So I will take a final look today. And the other one, I think, is the same. Uh, 19 days ago, I said it was in my queue for tomorrow. So I'll definitely put it in my queue for today. All right. Next up, we have in progress. Anybody on the line that can speak to any of these? Start at the bottom. Tech lead offboarding for Dan, I think is mostly done. I'll ping Steven offline for that one. Release team lead access for Ray, James.
So
Joe.
the rest of the steps is offboarding. So that's going to
Okay.
be towards the end of the release.
Yep. All right. This one, I think, is related to Max's two open issues. Take a look. Yeah. Okay. So we will hopefully close that one out with two reviews that are open. Pull Kubernetes EDE GC is nearing its timeout. All right, this is one we should follow up with SIG testing on, see if it should still be in the critical path or not. This is number 74375. Okay. Does anybody want to volunteer to follow up on this one?
Yeah, I can follow up.
Okay, that'd be awesome. Thank you, Veronica. And then developer guide audit. Let's check this one out. Pretty old. Let's see.
Yeah, I have been involved in this in different iterations. It hasn't been a priority at all, but happy to keep it going.
Okay.
There are some conversations that are not official or part of tickets or anything like that, and about giving some love to a couple of handbooks. So this could be part of that effort. But yeah, definitely not blocking or anything like that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Okay, so to do in 123, move kubeadm out of Kubernetes. I think this is similar to what SIG Release was talking, or sorry, SIG CLI was talking about. They've moved code out, but I think the critical piece of that is building some of this. And I think Nabroon was going to look into some of that. Yeah, there we go. So I will ping Nabroon about this. All right. Anything that anyone would like to bubble up on here that they're aware of? Okay. With that, we'll end the meeting just a few minutes early then. we'll open it up just again for any questions that people may have or any last minute items they'd like to bring up. But otherwise, we can end just a few minutes early and everybody can have a few minutes back before they have to jump to another meeting or end their day a little bit early. All right. Well, I hope everybody has a great morning, afternoon, evening, whatever it may be, and hope everyone stays safe and has a great week. If you have any other questions or anything comes up, please reach out to us on the SIG Release Slack channel or the mailing lists. All right, thanks. Have a great one.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.